Have you ever looked at a picture that seemed perfect only to notice one tiny detail that made the whole thing fall apart for years? The world watched a polished Hollywood-style romance play out in the heart of the British monarchy. We saw the smiles the designer maternity wear and the headlines celebrating a modern royal family. But while the cameras were flashing a growing number of people, noticed something else. They saw shapes that defied gravity. They saw movements that didn't match biology. And now they are looking at a set of initials that might just bring the whole narrative crashing down. We aren't talking about internet trolls or vague theories anymore. We are talking about a specific woman known only as DL, who has allegedly stepped forward from the shadows. She isn't claiming to be a witness. She is claiming to be the biological engine behind the entire story. According to explosive new allegations, the woman we saw on magazine covers may have been performing the role of a lifetime, while DL remained locked away, carrying the reality that the public was never meant to see. But the most shocking part isn't the alleged deception. It's the evidence she says she's ready to bring to a court of law. For a long time, the doubts were just whispers. People would point to a photo where the royal baby bump appeared to be sitting too high, or perhaps a video where it seemed to sway unnaturally. Most people brushed it off as bad angles or fabric bunching up. But then came the moments that were harder to explain. There is a specific type of physics to a pregnancy. It is solid, it is heavy, it changes a woman's center of gravity. It does not fold in on itself when you sit down. Critics have spent years analyzing frame-by-frame footage where the silhouette seems to collapse or shift in ways that human skin simply doesn't. We've seen images where the size of the bump seems to fluctuate drastically within a matter of days. Massive one morning, barely there the next. In the world of special effects, this is called a continuity error. In the real world, it's a biological impossibility. And then there's the infamous hospital video. You've likely seen the clips circulating Meghan in a hospital room, dancing, moving with a rhythm and agility that stunned mothers around the world. The narrative was that this was a fun, candid moment of a mother-to-be trying to induce labor. But look closer. The critics argue that the movement is too free, the energy too high, and the body's shape inconsistent. It was released to prove the reality of the event, but for many it had the exact opposite effect. It felt like a performance. It felt like a scene shot for a documentary, not a private medical moment. And as it turns out, that feeling of performance might have been exactly what was happening while the real labor was happening somewhere else entirely. So if the person in front of the cameras was allegedly wearing a prosthetic, a moon bump, as the industry calls it, then who was doing the heavy lifting? This is where the story takes a dark and structured turn. Enter DL. According to the claims now shaking the internet, DL is not a disgruntled staffer or a distant relative. She is described as a professional surrogate recruited through a high-level, ultra-discreet agency that specializes in solving problems for the elite. The allegations suggest that this wasn't a standard surrogacy arrangement where the parents visit and hold hands with the carrier. This was an operation in total erasure. DL allegedly describes a life that was systematically dismantled. From the moment the contract was signed, she ceased to be a person and became a vessel. She wasn't just asked to be quiet, she was asked to disappear. Imagine being the person responsible for the future of a royal dynasty, yet you are treated like a ghost. No family visits, no phone calls that could be traced. DL claims she was moved to a secure location where her diet, her sleep, and her medical appointments were managed with military precision. She wasn't a partner in this journey. She was a contracted service. The goal was simple: protect the asset, deliver the product, and then vanish into the ether as if she had never existed. But as we know, when you try to completely erase a human being, you often end up creating a force that refuses to stay buried. We need to talk about how an operation like this stays secret. You might think, surely someone would talk. A doctor, a nurse, a receptionist. And usually you'd be right. But this wasn't a standard hospital visit. The allegations state that the silence was bought and paid for before the pregnancy even began. DL claims she signed agreements that were terrifying in their scope documents, outlining massive compensation in exchange for total confidentiality and the forfeiture of any future claims. This aligns terrifyingly well with the break in royal protocol we all witnessed. Think back to Princess Diana or Catherine, Princess of Wales. What is the tradition? The Lindo Wing Walk. The doctors standing on the steps, the signatures of the medical team posted on an easel at Buckingham Palace. These aren't just photo ops, they are historical records. They are the chain of custody for the crown. With Archie and Lilibet, those steps vanished. There were no doctors on the steps. There was no live announcement. The signatures were shrouded in mystery. At the time, we were told this was about privacy. We were told they wanted to do things their own way. But looking back through the lens of DL's claims, that demand for privacy looks less like a personal preference and more like a tactical necessity. You can't have doctors sign a witness statement for a birth they didn't oversee. You can't stand on the steps of a hospital if the child was born in a private clinic miles away by a woman whose name isn't on the royal roster. The silence wasn't protecting the family's peace. It was allegedly protecting the timeline. For years, the plan worked. The moon bump theories were dismissed as internet conspiracy. The lack of medical signatures was ignored by the mainstream press. The narrative held together because the silence held together. But silence has a breaking point, especially when it involves the emotional weight of carrying a child. DL says she didn't want fame. She didn't want to be a celebrity. But she allegedly reached a point where the erasure became too heavy to carry. Living outside the public record creates a psychological strain that money can't fix. DL describes watching the news, seeing the adoration, the interviews, the struggle of pregnancy, being described by someone else while she sat in isolation, recovering from the actual physical trauma of birth. It creates a dissonance, a split reality. On one side, the polished image, on the other, the biological truth. But what truly changed the game wasn't just emotion, it was fear. Rumors began to circulate that the arrangement was being leaked. DL allegedly realized that if the story came out, she would be the one left without protection. The agreements she signed were designed to protect the parents, not her, so the strategy shifted. Instead of hiding the claims are that DL has now retained legal counsel. And this isn't about selling a story to a tabloid, this is about protection. She allegedly possesses the one thing that PR teams can't: spin documentation. Timeline's medical records and correspondence with the agency. The silence didn't just break, it shattered. Let's go back to that video in the hospital. The dancing, the music. When you watch it now, knowing what we know about these allegations, the scene feels different. It feels curated. In the world of PR, when you are accused of something, the standard response is to overcorrect. If people say you aren't pregnant, you release a video of yourself acting undeniably pregnant. You emphasize the labor. You emphasize the bump. But critics argue that the video reveals the very thing it tried to hide. It lacks the raw, exhausted, messy reality of imminent childbirth. It looks like a scene from a movie where the actor is trying to convey fun modern mom. The timing of the release is also suspicious. Why release this intimate footage years later, specifically when the surrogacy rumors were hitting an all-time high? It's a classic diversion tactic. Look here at this happy dancing woman and ignore the lack of medical documents. Ignore the fact that no doctors have gone on record. The video was meant to be the smoking gun that ended the debate. Instead, it became the fuel for a new fire. It suggested that there was a need to sell the pregnancy to the public, a need that wouldn't exist if everything had followed standard procedure. Authenticity doesn't need to be marketed, it just is. When you have to market your medical reality, people start to ask why the sales pitch is so aggressive. Now, you might be asking yourself, why does any of this matter? It's the 21st century, surrogacy is normal. And you're right for normal people, but we aren't talking about normal people. We are talking about the British royal family, an institution that runs on laws that are centuries old. This is where the story shifts from celebrity gossip to constitutional crisis. There's a very specific rule regarding the line of succession. To be in line for the throne, a child must be born of the body. This dates back to days when they needed to ensure a king wasn't just smuggling in a random baby to secure an heir. The law requires the mother to physically birth the child. If a child is born by a surrogate, even if they are biologically related to the parents via DNA, they are currently excluded from the line of succession. This is the nuclear bomb sitting at the center of the DL narrative. If Meghan Markle did not carry those children, and if that can be proven, Archie and Lilibet could theoretically lose their titles and their places in line to the throne. This explains the extreme secrecy. This explains the alleged erasure of DL. It wasn't just about vanity or body image, it was about securing the birthright of the children. The stakes were nothing less than a place in history. If DL's claims are true, a massive fraud has been committed not just against the public, but against the crown itself. This brings us to the current standoff. We are no longer in the realm of he said, she said. We are entering the realm of evidence. DL represents a threat that cannot be silenced with a payout because she is allegedly asking for something money can't by legal acknowledgement. The rumors suggest that she has agreed to DNA testing through formal legal channels. Think about the implications of that. A DNA test doesn't lie. It doesn't care about Oprah interviews or Netflix documentaries. If this goes to court, or if these documents are leaked, the PR machine stops working. You can't spin a biological match. You can't spin a contract that bears the signatures of the parties involved. The allegations state that DL has retained high-power counsel signaling that she is preparing for a fight. This suggests that the agreement to disappear has been breached. Perhaps payments stopped, or perhaps the pressure became too great. Whatever the trigger, the result is that the invisible woman is becoming visible. And for the Sussex camp, this is the nightmare scenario. You can cut off a father, you can sue a newspaper, but you cannot sue a medical fact out of existence. We are watching a story that is teetering on the edge of a cliff. For years, the narrative of the Sussex pregnancies has been protected by a wall of aggressive privacy and carefully curated media. We accepted the lack of protocol because we were told it was modern. We accepted the visual glitches because we were told not to body shame. We accepted the story because the alternative seemed too wild to believe. But now, with the emergence of the DL narrative, the pieces are starting to fit together in a way that is hard to ignore. We have the motive, the line of succession. We have the method, a high-end agency, and a strict NDA. And now we have the witness. If DL follows through, if the evidence she claims to have sees the light of day, we aren't just looking at a celebrity scandal. We are looking at a historical deception that could rewrite the royal lineage. The question isn't just, did she fake it? The question is, what happens when the world finds out? The silence has held for a long time, but as we all know, the truth has a funny way of making itself heard, usually right when you think it's been buried forever. What do you think, is DL the missing piece of the puzzle, or is this just another layer of rumors? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe as we keep tracking this story.